This is Teacher Jennifer. I'm going to review our summer citizenship class. We had the summer citizenship class on July 11th, but I forgot to do the recording. So I'm going to talk about what we studied on that day. The picture that you see now, or the video that you see now, is a video of a tour of Washington, D.C. I wanted you to see some of the buildings that Nagase would take his visitors to. Then we moved on to the coin quiz. So this is a good way to practice your civics questions. Every time you see coins or dollars, you think in your mind, what are the answer to these questions? So number one, we have Lincoln and he's on the penny. So what was one important thing that Abraham Lincoln did? He freed the slaves. Again, he freed the slaves. Next question. Jefferson is on the nickel. So this is the question. Who wrote the Declaration of Independence? Thomas Jefferson. So this is the front of the nickel, but on the back of some of the nickels, they have the nickel that remembers the Louisiana Purchase. So what territory did the United States buy from France in 1803? It was the Louisiana Territory. And Thomas Jefferson was the one who signed the bill that bought the Louisiana Territory from France. Okay, so we're going to clear these and we're going to move on. So the next one, we have the dime. So Franklin Roosevelt is on the dime. So who was president during the Great Depression and World War II? It is Franklin Roosevelt. And this one is a pretty easy one. Who is the father of our country? Again, we have George Washington. And this is a very common thing for dictation when you're doing your citizenship interview. They're going to ask you to read one question in English and then do a dictation about the answer. So this one, how many states are the United States? And the dictation would be, there are 50 states in the United States. So again, there are 50 states in the United States. Okay, now on the back of a lot of quarters, there are the different states. So we can use them to remember our geography. So especially when you look at your quarters. There were 13 original states, name 3. Well, we have 3 right here. We have New Hampshire, New Jersey, and New York. Name one state that borders Canada. New York borders Canada. Name one state that borders Mexico. California borders Mexico. And where is the Statue of Liberty? It is in New York. And in fact, you see the Statue of Liberty on the quarter. So later on the week, we're going to go to the other page to do the pop quiz. Okay, so last week we read a little bit about George Washington, and in particular, I was inspired to do the coin quiz because of this page in that handout. We also talked about Thomas Jefferson, and Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence. So here we are reading about the Declaration of Independence. And more importantly, this is the section in here that the Declaration of Independence says that all men or all people are created equal. There are 3 rights in the Declaration of Independence: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So here we have Jefferson, Adams, and Benjamin Franklin, and they are preparing the Declaration of Independence. We talked a little bit about the War of Independence. So in the War of Independence, it started in 1775 and it ended in 1783. So the question is why did the colonists fight the British? Number 1, because of high taxes. Number 2, because the British Army stayed in the colonist houses. And number 3, because the colonists did not have self-government. And this is very important because the first 3 words of the Constitution is about self-government. The first 3 words are we the people. We're going to talk about that a little bit more at the end of the week. Here is George Washington when he was a young man, and he was the general in the Continental Army. So the War of Independence started in 1775. The colonists declared their independence in 1776. George Washington was a general during the war. A general is a leader of an army. The colonists won the war in 1783, and after that, the colonists formed the 13 original states. So during the interview, they're going to ask you, name 3 of the 13 original states. Many people will say New York, New Hampshire, and New Jersey, but you can also remember people like Washington was from Virginia. John Adams was from Massachusetts, and somebody like Benjamin Franklin lived for many, many years in Pennsylvania, particularly in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So here we have the map. Again, we have Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, Massachusetts, Delaware, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island. Massachusetts had these 2 pieces of property during that time, and the last one is New Hampshire. Okay, and they talked about the stars and the stripes. So the first star, we have 13 stripes for the 13 original colonies, and we have 1 star for each state. And our colors are red, white, and blue. And here is some more information here. Okay, so we're going to continue on, and we're going to take a look at the intermediate level. So this week, we tried to start reading the intermediate level lesson plans. Again, you see the same picture about the writing of the Declaration of Independence. Let's continue on to the questions. What did the Declaration of Independence do? Said that the U.S. was free from Great Britain. Remember, Great Britain at that time was England, Scotland, and Wales. What are 2 rights in the Declaration of Independence? Life and liberty. Who wrote the Declaration of Independence? It is Thomas Jefferson. When was the Declaration of Independence adopted? July 4th, 1776. And when do we celebrate Independence Day? We just celebrated on July 4th, 1776. Okay, good. Now let's take a look at the next page. They have information here about the father of our country. It is George Washington. And some of the questions are, who is the father of our country? George Washington. Who was the first president? George Washington. Finally, we started talking about Jefferson. And so we're doing this as a run-up. We need to talk about the Declaration of Independence because we need to move on later this week about the Constitution and some of our rights. So he was the first, after Washington became the first president, he asked Jefferson to be the first Secretary of State. And in 1801, Jefferson became the third president of the United States. He served for 8 years. In the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson wrote about values and ideas that were important to the colonists. These ideas are still important to Americans today. So we're going to be reading these words, and we're going to be talking about what they mean in English or plain English. So we hold these truths to be self-evident. So we believe that certain ideas are true and obvious, that all men and all women are created equal. So we believe that everybody is equal and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. So these are things that cannot be taken away from people. So it says that we believe that there are certain natural rights, and those rights cannot be taken away by the government. And among these rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So we believe the right to live freely and the right to look for happiness. So again, what are two rights in the Declaration of Independence? Many people say life and liberty. And who wrote the Declaration of Independence? Again, it is Thomas Jefferson. Okay. Let's take a look at the next part of this passage, and we'll come back to this. But maybe let's do this verb review. So they're talking about the irregular past tense. So the regular past tense of become is became. Begin is began. Choose is chose. Feel, the past tense of feel is felt. Past tense for fight is fought. So not only did the Americans fight for their freedom, but Susan B. Anthony fought for women's rights, and we talk about Martin Luther King fighting for civil rights. Meet, met, think, have thought, win, won, and right past tense is wrote. And I want to remind you the past participle that we use in the perfect tense to form the perfect tense is written. Okay, good. Okay, now let's continue on. We're going to go and take a look at the interview today. So we are doing part 15, or sorry, Series B, Practice 1, and there were 15 basic questions. So let's continue. So the first question is, how are you eligible to become a U.S. citizen? Many people say that they have been a legal permanent resident for 5 years, or they are married to a U.S. citizen for 3 years. they have a green card for 3 years. The spouse is an American citizen for 3 years, and they have lived in the United States for 3 years. So there's a couple of additional requirements. Okay, now, what is your current legal name? So they're going to want to know your first name, your middle name, and your last name. Many times this is on your green card or your passport. Sometimes it's on your student ID. Sometimes it's part of your signature. What is your phone number? So usually they do not ask this during the interview, but they will ask you to supply your phone number on your N400. What is your current home address? And they want to know your street address, your name of your city, the state, and your zip code. Do you work or do you go to school? So they're asking here about financial support. As we get further along, we'll be learning how to say things like, I'm self-employed, or I have disability, or I'm supported by my family. Have you taken any trips outside the United States? So here we're going to start asking a lot more questions about travel. They're going to be asking you how many trips have you taken, how many days outside the United States have you been, and they will ask you about your dates when you basically left and came back to the United States. They usually do not want to know every single time. They don't need to know every single date. They usually want to know the dates of the last trip. Are you married? So they're going to ask about your marital status. Are you single, married, widowed, or divorced? Do you have any children? So some people do have children, some people don't have children. Okay, now finally we're going to start asking more questions, more and more questions on the part 12. There's a lot of vocabulary involved. So have you ever claimed to be a U.S. citizen? So this person is asking, hey, are you an American citizen? And this person says, yes, I am. But is it true? It's actually false. So he is lying about his status. Have you ever voted in any U.S. elections? Do you pay your taxes every year? Have you ever badly hurt or killed a person on purpose? So sometimes people kill people by accident, or sometimes they kill people because they're in the military. But this means you're trying to plan to do something with malicious intent. You want to do something bad and against the law. Have you ever been arrested or committed a crime? So this means that this is a criminal committing a crime, maybe a robbery. They are arrested by a police officer and they're taken to jail or prison. This is one of the very important questions. Do you support the U.S. Constitution? Because you've been saying no, no, no for a couple minutes now. And now when they say, do you support the Constitution? And you say no, that's bad. So you got to listen for this one. And do you promise that everything that you've said on your N400 is true? And hopefully you will say yes. Okay, let's take a look at the Nagasi. Chapter 3 is he had a bad customer who wanted to, he wanted a discount and he didn't want to give a tip. So anyway, Nagasi basically drops the person off. And then he picks up some people. He's talking about the different places that he goes in Washington, D.C. So please take a look at that video from my friend about Washington, D.C. He is going to a hotel and he picks up a Japanese couple and they want to go see the White House. And so here he is picking them up. And he's trying to tell them about the White House, but the man says, little English, says the man, speak slowly, please. Okay, Nagasi says in a slow voice, the White House is white. And it's very important. One of the things in this story is that if someone is speaking to you, but you understand only a little English, what are good things to do? Well, if you smile and shake your head, that could be leading to misunderstandings. So that's not actually something good to do. So ask the person to speak more slowly. Most people will do that. Yeah, they don't have a problem doing that. Can you ask another person to translate for you? Yes, that's a good idea. Asking a person to speak louder. Sometimes if you speak loudly, it doesn't sound appropriate, or the words don't sound correctly. So sometimes this is not a good idea to ask a person to speak louder. You don't want to ask somebody who speak louder. Sometimes you want to say, please speak more, speak more clearly, because some people mumble. Ah, what happened? Okay. Looking up words in a dictionary is good, but sometimes you do not have time to do that. So, but I will still say yes, that is always a good idea. If you can look up words in a dictionary, that is good. Pretend to understand completely? No, never do that. Always ask clarifying questions. So you make sure that you understand. You could ask people to repeat or say it again. If you try to repeat what the person said, that's always a good way to see if they say yes or no. Asking the person to be quiet is never a good idea. They might get offended. And ask the person to speak your language. You can do that. You can always ask, hey, do you speak Spanish? Do you speak Chinese? Do you speak Vietnamese? Many people will say no, but you can always ask. Okay, so that's a quick review of chapter 3 of Nagasi. I want to move on to chapter 4. So here Nagasi is with the Japanese couple in front of the White House, and they look very, very happy. So Nagasi remembers when he spoke very little English. It was difficult when he first came to the United States. Nagasi went to an adult school for 3 years. He studied hard and improved a lot, but he still made some mistakes. Once, a passenger in his taxi asked to go to the National Gallery of Art, but Nagasi took her to the National Zoo. Well, it was the national something. He can laugh about it now, but at the time it wasn't so funny. So take a notice that this one is the Gallery of Art, and this one is the Gallery of the National Zoo. So Alpha, and this is the first A, and this is the last Z. So that is a big mix-up. Plus, they're on very, very different parts of Washington. So the passenger might have gotten very, very upset. So Nagasi pulls up near the White House. He helps the Japanese couple out of the back of the taxi. Yes, it is white, says the man, laughing. Thank you. Then he pays the fare and gives Nagasi an $8 tip. Wow, that's really good. That's a really good tip. It's especially surprising because usually in Japan you don't tip. So this couple did know about American culture. That's great. And I'm sure Nagasi appreciates it. But now he has a new group of passengers, just them 3 young people flagged down Nagasi. And remember, flag means to wave or to call a taxi like this. They look like college students. Okay, do college students have a lot of money? Maybe not. They want to go to the Jefferson Memorial. They get into the back of Nagasi's taxi. Then Nagasi says, the Thomas Jefferson Memorial honors our third president. The bronze statue is 19 feet tall, but these passengers aren't listening to him. So Nagasi stops talking. Finally, Nagasi stops near the monument and the passengers get out. They pay Nagasi, but they don't give him a tip at all. Nagasi knows that Thomas Jefferson wrote that all men are created equal. Maybe, thinks Nagasi, but they don't tip the same. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the vocabulary. Or actually here, they have pictures. So this one here is the White House. And I think this is the back side of the White House. This one is the Jefferson Memorial. And the last one is the National Gallery. Okay, very good. Now let's take a look at these questions above. So we have, these are simple present, but they are also, most of them are irregular. So we have made, came, went, was, studied, asked, took, and spoke. So when we take a look at this one, Nagasi remembers when he spoke. Very little English spoke. It was difficult when he first came to the United States. Nagasi went to an adult school for 3 years. He studied hard and learned a lot, but he still made some mistakes. Once a passenger in his taxi asked to go to the National Gallery of Art, but Nagasi took her to the National Zoo. Well, it was national something. So there we have simple past tense verbs. Okay, now finally, let's take a look to see if we have anything else that we need to look at it. Okay, and oh, here's a very interesting story about the Jefferson Memorial. The Thomas Jefferson Memorial honors the third president of the United States. It is a key landmark in Washington, D.C., located on the shore of the tidal basin of the Potomac River. Modeled after the Pantheon of Rome, the Jefferson Memorial was dedicated on April 13, 1943, the 200th anniversary of Jefferson's birthday. The bronze statue of Jefferson is 19 feet tall and weighs 5 tons. So a ton is 2,000 pounds. So it's 10,000 pounds. The interior walls are engraved with Jefferson's writings, including all men are created equal from the Declaration of Independence. So who does the Thomas Jefferson Memorial honor? Well, it honors Thomas Jefferson. Where is it located? It is located on the tidal basin. So the tidal basin is where the ocean or the river and ocean water come in and out, okay, of the Potomac River that flows into, it eventually flows into the Atlantic Ocean. It was modeled after the Pantheon in Greece. So that's a building that honors all the Greek gods. When was it dedicated? April 13th in 1943. So this was during World War II. And so America was at war at that time. We were fighting Germany, Italy, and Japan. And it was, this is the 200th anniversary or of his birthday. Of Thomas Jefferson's birth. Okay, and how tall is the bronze statue? It is 19 feet and almost 10,000 pounds. So heavy. Okay, so anyway, we're gonna so now we're gonna stop. Thank you so much. Sorry I forgot to do the recording, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.